Welcome to We Are Soldiers. This is Wajahat Saeed Khan. This is the beginning of the most comprehensive series ever produced on the country's armed forces. Today, and over the next few weeks, you will get an in-depth view and analysis of the way Pakistan's armed forces work, function, and train. You will actually see the men and the machines in action, performing major and minor operations of war. You will also gain access to information that focuses on the prevailing security situation in Pakistan and the region, and how that affects the tactics of such operations. And you will be taken to places that you might have heard about, but perhaps not seen. From Siachen to Sir Creek, Waziristan to the line of control, you will bear witness to the art and science of soldiering in a country which many consider to be the eye of the global security storm. This is Dawn News, and you are watching We Are Soldiers. Stay tuned. There are three branches of Pakistan's armed forces: the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. Effectively, the Pakistani military machine is the sixth largest in the world. The Army is the largest branch, with an estimated 550,000 active troops. The Army is a land-based operations force, though it has aviation and amphibious assets as well. The Army is tightly organized into large formations called corps. There are 9 corps of the Pakistan Army, with each corps led by a 3-star Lieutenant General. Also having corps status is the Strategic Force Command, which controls the country's nuclear arsenal. Together, the corps form the functional backbone of Army operations. The generals who lead these corps are technically the Army's most powerful operational officers, apart from the Chief of Army Staff, a 4-star general whom they all report to. Each corps has a certain specified number of divisions. If the corps are the backbone, then these divisions or divs are the arms. Every corps has a particular makeup of divisions. The makeup depends on the strategic and tactical imperatives of the location and the Army's threat perception, security climate, and terrain of that location. For example, most of Pakistan's armored divisions, meaning those divs which are equipped with tanks, are in corps located in the plains of Punjab and the deserts of Sindh. That's because, although the Army has traditionally perceived a threat from across the eastern border, it is only in the terrain of the plains and the deserts where tanks can actually function, and where there is a perceived armored threat from across the border. Meanwhile, divisions of corps that are located in terrains inhospitable to the movement of heavy vehicles, like along the line of control and in Fatah and Swat, are primarily infantry-based, meaning they rely heavily on foot soldiers to do the fighting. Considering that the Army depends on a hierarchical superstructure because of its size and broad operational scope, the chain of command is the focal point of all Army activity. Corps are led by Lieutenant Generals, divisions by Major Generals, also called 2-stars or GOCs, short for General Officer Commanding. Then, each division comprises of brigades, led by brigadiers, and each brigade is responsible for what is perhaps the lowest common denominator of the Army's organizational hierarchy: the unit. The unit is the basic building block of the Army. While corps, divisions, and even brigades have multiple tasks to perform, ranging from planning logistics and coordinating with the Air Force or the Navy and other corps, divs, and brigades, units have a specialized role. Always having a lieutenant colonel as its commanding officer, the unit has a single function: to fight or support the fight in accordance with the arm it belongs to. Arms are the specialized, task-specific centers of the Army. They are broken down into 2 categories: fighting arms and supporting arms. Units from fighting arms engage in frontline combat operations. Supporting arms units play a vital role in supplementing those combat operations. The Armored Corps, which is based on tanks, the infantry, which is made up of foot soldiers, and the artillery, which uses heavy, long-range guns, are the fighting arms of the Pakistan Army. Supporting arms consist of the engineers who help lay bridges and mines, the signals who are in charge of all communications, the ordnance which handles the arsenal, electrical and mechanical engineering who are responsible for repairing all vehicles, Army aviation which provides air support, air defense which provides protection from enemy air assaults, supply and transport which is responsible for logistically aiding frontline operations, and the Army Medical Corps which runs field ambulances as well as hospitals during wartime and peace. Effectively, the operational structure of the Army is like a pyramid. Units, whether from fighting or supporting arms, form the base. They report to brigades, which report to divisions, which report to corps. The buck starts at the level of a unit, which may be based on the front line, and stops at the corps, which may be headquartered in a major city. That's the game. But who are the players?
When some people think of the army, they think of the armor, tanks and whatnot. Other people think of the artillery, guns. But of course, before the artillery or the armor came the infantry, ground troops, foot soldiers who fight for the land. This is their story.
Welcome to the infantry. The infantry is the single largest arm of the Pakistan Army.
We're living on the edge. Living on the edge.
There was a time when the infantry dominated all armies of the world, but with the development of weapons technology, especially mechanization and air support, and the increased concentration on logistics, the ratio of infantry has dropped in most Western armies. In Pakistan's case, however, the infantry continues to dominate by numbers, and there are currently between 180,000 to 200,000 active infantry troops serving all across the country. Historically, the infantry is as old as war itself. Apart from the Mongolians, all armies have depended on the infantry to hold an objective. The concept is simple. The cavalry, then based on horses and now tanks, did the heavy fighting. His job was to clear an objective and plow through its defenses. Today, with the development of air support and artillery, increased firepower has acted as a force multiplier to that concept. But the actual capturing of an objective has always depended on the presence of soldiers on the ground. That's where the infantry comes in. Able to access terrain and in urban warfare, buildings and compounds as well, the infantry establishes force presence on enemy territory. That's why the infantry is universally called by all armies to be the queen of battle. In Pakistan, the infantry is divided up into 6 regiments. 3 of the 6, the Punjab, the Baloch, and the Frontier Force, range back to the days of the Raj. 3 more regiments have been added since partition. The Azad Kashmir Regiment, the Sindh Regiment, and the Northern Light Infantry. All regiments are distinguished by the historical role they have been used in, recruiting patterns, as well as regimental colors and signs. In this episode of We Are Soldiers, you will see the fundamental tenets of basic infantry training. Physical fitness, hand-to-hand combat, and of course, the use of weaponry. Is the Pakistani infantry ready to meet the growing challenges of conventional and unconventional security threats in the modern battlefield? You are about to find out. Because their operational role requires mobility and maneuverability in the battlefield, the infantry pays special attention to the physical fitness of its soldiers. Enter the Assault Course, ever present in every garrison. The Assault Course is used in military training to increase fitness, to demonstrate techniques that can be used for crossing very tough terrain, and to build teamwork and self-confidence.
Right, I am Captain Habib Rahman from 39 Azad Kashmir Heavy Anti-Tank Battalion. The basic purpose of the assault course is physical fitness and the mental robustness of the troops. They'll negotiate these obstacles when they are inside the enemy territory. They might come across all the obstacles.
Is everybody in the battalion supposed to undergo this assault course?
Yes, everybody in the army is supposed to undergo the same training.
Including the officers?
Everybody. Officers, JCUs and all the soldiers.
But with fitness must come technique. And though the infantry trains its soldiers in various battlefield weapons, units also undergo hand-to-hand combat techniques. Considering today's military technology, the chances that there will be actual hand-to-hand combat or a bayonet charge in a modern infantry engagement are slim. But there is a larger purpose attached. Coordinated taekwondo and bayonet slashing, two staples of the infantry's basic training, are perceived by army instructors to enhance the critical factor of teamwork, as it is essential for infantries to perform complicated maneuvers in the battlefield. Together, the assault course and hand-to-hand combat training are not necessarily meant to gear up troops for war. They get soldiers gearing to get geared up for war. You've seen how the infantry prepares physically for combat. But in the modern battlefield, no objective can be achieved without the soldier's best friend, his firearm. What are the mainstay combat weapons of the Pakistan Army, and how does the infantry use them? That's coming up. This is We Are Soldiers. Stay tuned.
Tonight, you kids will sleep with your rifle. You will give your rifle a girl's name.
Psyching up infantrymen to prepare for battle is an important part of gearing up for war. But weaponry and the ability to optimally use it is an essential for actually achieving battlefield objectives.
Are over. You're married to this piece, this weapon of iron and wood, and you will be faithful.
Infantry weapons and tactics are symbiotic, meaning the implementation of one depends on the other. For the infantryman, a rifle is his best friend.
Mount! Hard! Hit!
This is my rifle. There are many like it, but this one is mine. My rifle is my best friend. It is my life. Without me, my rifle is useless. Without my rifle, I am useless. I must fire my rifle true. I must shoot straighter than my enemy who is trying to kill me. I must shoot him before he shoots me. I will, so be it, until there is no enemy, but peace. Amen.
At ease. Good night, ladies.
A lot of thinking went behind Kubrick's dark version of Marines training for Vietnam. But these are the facts. Every weapon has a particular purpose. Depending on its technical abilities, each infantry weapon can only be used in a certain formation, in a certain terrain, and for a certain purpose. But training is key. In the modern battlefield, there is no ultimate weapon. But given the situation, there usually is a right weapon as well as a wrong one.
Welcome to Small Arms Firing Range number 2, Chor, deep inside the Thar Desert. Welcome to the infantry. Today we're checking out 3 different sorts of weapons which are the mainstay of the infantry. The first one, the MP5, originally made in Germany, 9mm, today used in close quarter battles, urban warfare, built-in areas. Complete different function than this guy, the G3. Completely different from the MP5 in the sense that it is the mainstay battle weapon of the Pakistan Army. In fact, it is called the best friend of the Pakistan Army soldier. 7.62mm, effective range of 300 meters, and of course, air-cooled. And then comes the big bad boy, the LMG, 7.62mm, effective range of 700 meters, but a harder, bigger weapon for harder, bigger targets. So today we're firing 3 different sorts of weapons, mainstay of the infantry, 3 different sort of utilities, 3 different sorts of targets, one purpose, demolition. Let's check it out.
Oh, shot! Detail, position.
They say that you should start small and think big. That's what we're going to do as we look at the mainstay weapons of the infantry. This is the MP5 Parabellum. Short for Machine Pistol 5, it is a submachine gun with origins tracing back to the 1960s when it was developed by German manufacturer Heckler & Koch. The Pakistan Army uses 4 versions of this weapon, the MP5A2 and its variants, the P3, P4 and P5. All versions are manufactured in Pakistan, but the technology is old. Since the A2, the MP5 has been reproduced into a family of variants. Although the MP5 remains one of the most widely deployed SMGs that has ever been developed, it has been replaced by many countries that were formerly using it. Though it is the smallest personal combat weapon in the Pakistani infantry's arsenal, the MP5 plays an increasingly important role in today's security climate. Traditionally used by officers, the MP5 is now being increasingly deployed among soldiers as well, in a new sort of security operation, the close quarter battle. Close quarter battle, or CQB, is not like a conventional battle, with 2 armies facing off across the border. Instead, CQB is a military operation meant to engage a domestic enemy at close range. Usually in a built-up area, a compound, or an urban setting. Because the operational area is small and usually involves room-to-room combat, the MP5's small size and short range actually work to its advantage.
ये वेपन MP5 A2 है, पाकिस्तान की बनी हुई है। ये नहायती वज़न में हल्का हथियार है और फायरी शरह इसकी काफ़ी तेज़ है। क्लोज क्वार्टर बैटल में इसकी मूवमेंट आसान है। अगर तंग जगह पे हम बड़ा हथियार लेके जाएं तो जब हम इसको बदन के साथ लगा सकते हैं, लेकिन अगर बड़ा हथियार होगा उसकी बैरल बड़ी होगी या कोई हिस्सा भी उसका बाहर होगा, जब हम मूवमेंट करेंगे, टर्न करेंगे तो वो आगे फंसेगा किसी चीज़ के पास। उसके बरक्स ये वेपन हमारा बॉडी के साथ बिल्कुल टच रहता है, हम इसको साथ रखते हैं और जब चाहे हम इसको ईजीली आसान इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं।
The Army's operation in Lal Masjid in 2007 is the perfect example of a close quarter battle. and what can go right or wrong in it. But the fighting in Lal Masjid was conducted by Special Operations Forces, the elite of the army. Regular infantry troops are also gaining tactical knowledge of CQB operations, and it is now a staple of the army's anti-terrorist training module for most of its infantry units. The urgency is obvious.
जो घर की लड़ाई होती है वो ज़्यादा सख्त होती है।
किस हिसाब से?
जो आपके हालात या मेरे हालात या किसी घरेलू हालात जानता है, वो हर लिहाज से हमें वो दुश्मन हमें जानता है, वो हमारे ही अंदर रह के हमारा दुश्मन होता है, इसलिए उसकी लड़ाई मुश्किल होती है।
Considering the current security threats facing Pakistan, the deployment of the MP5 is key. Though compact, it is handy and mobile. Still, the MP5 is not a weapon that can be easily used in a conventional military engagement, but rather is meant for the swift and sudden environment of close-quarter battles, where the enemy turns up suddenly and unexpectedly. Every regular army strives for a standard weapon. The Americans have used the fabled M16. The Russians have deployed the dependable AK series. In the days of the Raj, the British used the controversial Lee Enfield throughout their empire. A standard weapon is required to equalize the training and preparedness of forces across the board. It is vital for implementing uniformity during wartime and also makes logistics simpler. This is the G3, the Pakistan Army's mainstay battle weapon. Every soldier and officer undergoes training on it. The G3 is not exactly cutting-edge personal assault rifle technology. Originally produced in the 1950s by Heckler & Koch, the origins of the G3 can be traced back to World War II's Mauser-made STG-45. In Pakistan, variants in use by the military are locally produced. Manufactured are the G3A3 and the G3P4, the latter having the facility of a retractable stock. The rifle has a sturdy 7.62 caliber and is designed for semi-automatic and fully automatic modes, meant to be fired from any shooting position. Its low cost, particularly because it is manufactured locally in several countries, has helped its case.
Let's talk about the weapon. Why has the Pakistan Army chosen this particular weapon? Is it user friendly? What is the psychology behind this being Pakistan Army's favorite weapon?
Yes, this weapon can be used at a varied range, but not obviously in mountainous range and at the snow line range. Less that area, this weapon can be used in the plains of Punjab. This is the most widely used weapon. And one thing about its caliber, it is 7.62 caliber, and it is not the caliber in vogue in armies these days. But still, difference between calibers is that this is the type of caliber which is used to kill the enemy, not to incapacitate the enemy. And this is, one basic idea behind using this weapon as a main army weapon.
You said to kill the enemy, not to incapacitate
Yes,
the enemy.
not to incapacitate.
So its purpose, then I think, is a simple one. It's to win the war, isn't it?
Sure.
Right.
But there are drawbacks. Weapons reviews say that the gun is too heavy. Compared to most modern assault rifles of other armies, which on average weigh no more than 3.5 kilograms, the Pakistani G3A3 weighs a hefty 4.5 kilos. Considering infantry troops move with heavy backpacks carrying munitions and supplies during wartime, this is a major shortcoming. Also, compared to the mainstay rifles of other armies, the G3 has the least effective range. Another issue is its control. Because it has what is referred to as a design to kill 7.62 caliber, the gun is almost uncontrollable during fully automatic firing, basically due to the powerful recoil generated by its bullet, which disallows accurate aiming. That is why the army trains its soldiers to fire this weapon in semi-automatic mode. This delivers accuracy and economy at the same time. Though at one stage, more than 50 countries either deployed or manufactured the G3 worldwide, most Western forces have now phased out the weapon. Similarly, militaries from many developing countries are also dropping the weapon and moving on to new, more versatile assault rifles. But considering that the G3 is a totally indigenously produced weapon, from its muzzle to its stock, the army stands by this dependable machine. For a country which has suffered from a series of arms embargoes, such independence is vital for national security. But the Pakistani G3 is a battle veteran, though ironically not in Pakistan. In the 1980s, the Sri Lankan government purchased a few thousand Pakistani-made G3A3s to fight against the Tamil Tigers with some success. But now, those rifles have been replaced. As for Pakistan, the G3 has not seen all-out frontline action in a total war. It was used by the army, the Rangers and the Frontier Corps during what are called internal security operations in interior Sindh and Karachi in the 90s and later Balochistan. But during the Kargil conflict with India in 1999, the rifle was not the weapon of choice. There was a political purpose for not widely deploying the G3 in that specific operation, for its possible recovery by the Indians would have been evidence of official military involvement from the Pakistani side, a fact which was denied by the administration at the time. We talked to a former trooper of the NLI, a Kargil veteran, about the performance of the machine in such high altitudes. He preferred to stay anonymous.
उधर सर LMG अच्छे हथियार थे सर, अच्छी चली थी, उसके निस्बत स्टैंड बहुत अच्छी थी सर, और जो G3 थे वो इतनी तेज नहीं थी जिस तरह LMG होते सर. उसके 5-5 राउंड 6-6 राउंड फायर होने के बाद G3 रुक जाती थी, फंस जाती थी सर. तो इसकी वजह ये हो सकती है कि वहाँ सर्दी बहुत थी, वो सर्दी वो बर्दाश्त नहीं कर सकती थी सर. इसकी वजह से -, डिग्री जो वहाँ सर्दी होती है -5, -10, इस डिग्रियों में जो सर्दी की डिग्रियाँ हैं इसमें ये G3 बर्दाश्त नहीं करती. इसमें फायर की इतनी सलाहियत नहीं है सर्दी जो बर्दाश्त कर सके, तो वो बर्दाश्त नहीं कर सकती सर्दी.
तो G3 कौन से इलाकों के लिए अच्छी है, मतलब किधर कामयाब है?
ये डोन एरिया में तो बहुत अच्छे है सर, इसमें कोई शक नहीं है कि पंजाब एरिया में ऐसे इलाकों में जहाँ सर्दी जैसे सचन में हो, ऐसे करगिल में जो सर्दी थी इसमें मतलब ये सही नहीं चली सर.
That is why perhaps in another conflict in another part of the country, the G3 is not the only weapon being used by the army. Most of Fatah and Swat is a ridge-lined and mountainous area, and engagements with militants do not usually exceed more than a few hundred meters. The weapons of choice in Fatah and Swat, at least for the militants, are dated and modern variants of the famous or infamous AK-47. Recently, the army and paramilitary troops have had to adapt and are using different versions of the AK in regular and special forces operations in that new theatre of conflict. There is no doubt that when it was introduced, the G3 was a dependable weapon. Till Pakistan faced a threat in the plains and deserts from across its eastern border, it was the right choice for its forces. But today, as the security environment and the theatre of conflict have changed, there is a need for Pakistani forces to evolve their weaponry as well. Still, the G3 is what it is, the best friend of the Pakistani infantryman. The MP5 is a paramilitary weapon, while the G3 is a personal assault rifle that is suitable for conventional infantry engagements. But the common factor between both these machines is that they are individual weapons, or weapons every soldier and officer can be equipped with. This one is not. Welcome to the machine gun. To be more exact, the 7.62mm MG3. The technology of the machine gun, that of rapid fire at a high rate, can be traced to the late 1800s, but it was in World War I when it earned a fearsome reputation. In fact, it was the deployment of the machine gun in trench warfare that led to the high casualties and the resulting stalemate on both sides during the Battle of the Somme, one of the bloodiest military engagements ever recorded. Statistics proved that a single machine gunner could mow down dozens of advancing soldiers. With more than 1.5 million casualties, the deadly use of the machine gun in the Somme offensive forced generals to rewrite the classic infantry doctrine of charging enemy positions, as eventually many soldiers refused to follow their officers' orders to take to the field when facing the lethal machine gun nest. Today, the Army uses the MG3's 1A3 version, made in Pakistan with the design tracing back to World War II's MG42, which was used to great effect by Nazi forces. The MG3 is classified as a light machine gun, or LMG. Don't let that fool you. This weapon is anything but light, nor is it to be taken lightly. With the rate of fire that exceeds 1,000 rounds per minute, the LMG packs a heavy punch. But it has shortfalls. The LMG is not a very mobile weapon, weighing in at over 25 kilos when its bipod is attached. The bipod is not a luxury. Because it is automatic, the recoil is so intense that using a bipod is essential. Still, the LMG is not a very accurate weapon and is meant to suppress enemy fire versus actually directly targeting enemy forces. Compared to other modern machine guns, it is also too long, measuring over 1200 millimeters, and difficult to run and set a target with. In a conventional military engagement, where an infantry unit can actually provide cover for a machine gunner as he sets up his bulky weapon for combat, the deployment of the LMG makes sense. But in Fatah and Swat, where the action is swift and sudden, the LMG is dated technology. However, it is mounted on vehicles in military convoys, but again as a fire suppressor, not a precise killer. The LMG also has a special designation. In an infantry unit, the LMG is classified as a section weapon. The section is the lowest division of any unit. Here's the map. Every infantry unit, which is commanded by a lieutenant colonel, is made up of a few companies. These companies are almost always headed by majors and number around 150 men. Then, each company is divided into platoons, usually commanded by a captain or a senior lieutenant, and consist of around 30 to 36 men. And the last division is that of a section, the basic fighting cell of an infantry unit. A section can be commanded by a senior non-commissioned officer and usually has between 9 and 13 soldiers. Not everyone gets the privilege or the arduous responsibility of handling the LMG. During training exercises, instructors usually assign the LMG to the most junior or overweight man in the section to carry around. But in war, the LMG is only handled by one of the steadiest hands in the formation.
Weaponry. Weaponry is key to warfare. In fact, weaponry, along with tactics, is key to deciding the winning or losing of any battle. Fortunately and unfortunately, for whatever reasons, weaponry has evolved. We have developed more and more efficient weapons. But the one thing they do teach you in the army as well is, besides using a weapon, learning how to use it safely. Safety is key because there's a lot of responsibility which comes with the use of any weapon. This is an MP5, 9mm, 30 bullets in its magazine. At this point, this weapon is ready to fire. But in the army, they teach you how to respect this weapon. Firstly, how you hold it. When you're using this weapon and you're not firing it, this is how you're supposed to keep your trigger finger. This, not this, this. Secondly, the safety settings. Every soldier is always, short of his superior officer telling him to pull the safety off, every soldier is supposed to keep the safety setting on safety. So even if he by mistake fires the weapon will not fire. Furthermore, how you hold this weapon in combat. For example, in this case, this is a close quarter combat weapon, but you use it for short range. So you're supposed to keep it close to your body, so your vector of fire is smooth, so there's no collateral damage, because you might be working, you use this weapon in a built-up area, in a compound, in an urban area, there might be civilians around, there might be friendly forces around, because instead of like this, if you are in a built-up area, you probably want this weapon as close and as controllable as possible. Why? Because the vector has to be short. Furthermore, how you hold this weapon when you're down. When you're standing on duty, you're supposed to hold a weapon down. Why? So in case a weapon misfires, it's going into the ground. It's quite all right. Safety. G3. Powerful weapon. Very powerful weapon. 7.62 mm. A 20-round box magazine. Oh boy. There, it's ready to go. Now, as far as this weapon is concerned, we know that it has the capability to knock out an enemy at around 300 meters. We know that weighs around more than 4 kg. We know it can do a lot of damage. Historically, it has. But this is what we also need to know. Every soldier, once again, is always supposed to keep it on safety. Same rule with the trigger finger. Same rule as well on holding it down. But a couple of other rules when it comes to firing. First of all, probably one of the most accurate positions in this weapon is kneeling down. Why? Because it has more weight. The center of gravity is different. So instead of standing up, you are more usually encouraged, versus the MP5, you're encouraged to kneel down and use this weapon. Why? More accurate, less damage to friendly forces or collateral damage. Same thing, even better. The prone position. Why? Because your fire, your spectrum of fire is even more accurate. And when you're done firing, what do? Put your hands up or put your weapon up. Always key. Safety is key. Then there's this guy, the MG3 light machine gun. Very difficult to control because this thing can fire over 1,000 rounds a minute. A fully automatic weapon, it's destruction made of metal. So you learn how to respect it. Firstly, look at the way the Army teaches you how to ergonomically use the way it's designed. You never, because this is, if your hand gets stuck here in the ammo belt, it's bad news. So how are you supposed to use this weapon? Like this. Your left hand, because most firers are right-handed, your left hand always goes on this side. The bolt mechanism is on the right side, ergonomically designed, because most firers are right-handed. And then recoil-wise, you're supposed to take your body's supposed to take most of the recoil instead of you. Why? Because you probably want the weapon to be more accurate. So when you're firing, you're laying down your arms, you're laying down positions on the enemy, you're laying down your sight, you want to be safe. You don't want to do damage to friendly forces. Once again, you have to use it safely. And when you're carrying this rather heavy weapon, it's almost 30 kilos. When you're carrying this weapon, you want to be safe as well. So this is how you carry it. Into battle, you could walk for a day, 2 days, 10 days. But if you're walking, this is how you would do it. Why? Because your shoulder is taking the weight, not you. That's another safety feature. And the machine gun. This one's with the tripod. Can do a lot of damage. An all-out machine gun. Similar features to the MG3, but a couple of important elements added to it. Firstly, the target sight. This target sight gives you more accuracy. Why? Because this is for in case of an aerial assault. You don't want to spray bullets here and there. Secondly, when you're working in a crowded area, you can set your rate of fire. First of all, you can use this elevation mechanism to figure out how exactly you want to tilt your fire. Secondly, you can use the traversing mechanism to figure out your spectrum of fire. You can actually set your machine gun so that it'll, in case it's firing, it'll only move within these settings. So that's the bottom line. Safety and not just security as far as weaponry is concerned, because they have a dual purpose. That's key. That's safety.
In this week's episode of We Are Soldiers, you were introduced to the operational functioning of the Army, Pakistan's largest armed force. You were shown the basics about the arms that make up this force and saw how the largest arm, the infantry, physically prepares for the rigors of battle and conducts weapons training. Next week, you will see more of the infantry. Soldiers from across the country will engage in simulated major and minor operations of war. You will also get an insight into how new weapons are evolving the infantry's structure and how new threats are reshaping the infantry's tactics and techniques. All of that is next week as the Queen of Battle continues. Thanks for watching We Are Soldiers.
Soul, but I'm not a soldier. I got soul, but I'm not a soldier. I got soul, but I'm not a soldier. I got soul, but I'm